Chapter 86, Forcing Back the Enemy. Esteemed Ancestral God. Everyone on Darkvale Island, particularly its younger residents, instantly let loose cries of elation upon witnessing Luo Feng's actions, and they all backed away, kneeling and kowtowing to Han Li as well. However, the slightly older residents of the island and the elders seemed to be rather hesitant, as if they had noticed something amiss. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and greet our ancestral god," Luo Feng yelled as he glared at the elders. "Ah, we pay our respects to the esteemed ancestral god." The elders hurriedly did as they were told, falling to their knees and kowtowing like everyone else. Ancestral god? Han Li's expression remained unchanged, but he was quite perplexed by what he was seeing. After a brief moment of initial confusion, he was able to quickly make sense of the situation. This human tribe, which was led by the scholarly man, was clearly being attacked by these foreign beings, who were led by the purple-robed man. Furthermore, the human tribe was clearly in a terrible state. In fact, it was no exaggeration to say that they were one step away from defeat. Never did he think that he would encounter something like this, after only just returning to the Immortal realm. If it weren't for the fact that there was only a single Grand Ascension cultivator present, and no one else was able to pose any threat to him, he would have immediately departed without any hesitation. After all, no matter what the outcome of this battle was, it had nothing to do with him. High up in the sky, Tuhar was watching Han Li with a rather hesitant expression. They were on the verge of wiping out this human settlement on Darkvale Island, and never did he think that a roadblock would appear in their way now. A body integration stage. Cold crystal being with a mustache on his face approached Tuhar, then asked via voice transmission, "What do we do, Chief? Should we go back and?" Tuhar hesitated momentarily, then replied through gritted teeth, "We finally have these accursed humans cornered. We can't afford to retreat now. We battle to the end." "But if that man really is the ancestral god of Darkvale Island," the mustached cold crystal being was rather hesitant, "you really think that man is the ancestral god of Darkvale Island? Look at how young he looks. And how did he even turn up? Did he suddenly burrow his way out of the ground? On top of that, I can tell that his aura is very feeble, so he must be carrying severe injuries. There's no need to fear him in this state, even if he is the ancestral god of Darkvale Island. All we need to do is kill him here, and it'll truly be over for Darkvale Island." Tuhar said as a cold gleam flashed through his eyes. As soon as his voice trailed off, he immediately shot forth like lightning, instantly appearing directly above Han Li, before looking down at him with a cold expression. The moustached man and the other 3 foreign body integration stage beings also immediately followed close behind, forming an encirclement with Tuhar to surround Han Li. Meanwhile, Han Li was looking straight into Tuhar's eyes with his hands clasped behind his back, looking completely unfazed. With Tuhar and the elders leading the charge, the rest of the cold crystal beings immediately erupted into thunderous war cries as they resumed their attack on the plaza. The humans also threw themselves back into the battle, but this time, their morale was significantly boosted by Han Li's arrival. Luo Feng swept his gaze across the surrounding area, then turned to Han Li, and he wanted to say something, but by then, Tuhar had already attacked. A vast expanse of blue light suddenly emerged from his body, forming a mountainous blue python head projection behind him. The python projection had a massive curved horn on its head, and it opened its cavernous mouth to release a wave of countless blue ripples that surged violently toward Han Li. A burst of glacial power emanated from the blue ripples, and a layer of frost began to spread over the ground, while even the surrounding air seemed to have been frozen solid. At the same time, Tuhar made a grabbing motion with both hands, and the blue light around him instantly transformed into a pair of short blue spears that flee out of his grasp. A layer of blue glacial flames appeared on the surface of the spears mid-flight, and they transformed into a pair of blue ice dragons that were over 100 feet in length, pouncing toward Han Li from both the left and the right. Almost at the exact same moment, the other 5 body integration stage foreign beings also launched a string of attacks at Han Li with their respective treasures. Hanli calmly raised a hand upon seeing this, extending a palm out of his sleeve toward the oncoming wave of blue ripples. A burst of tremendous force crashed into the blue waves, and the latter were instantly destroyed amid a burst of loud crackling, vanishing into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Right at this moment, a bone-chilling sensation surged toward Hanli as the pair of blue ice dragons pounced on him with ferocious might. Hanli didn't even bat an eyelid as he swept his other hand through the air, and a series of ripples appeared in the space before him, as if a giant invisible hand had just swept past. A pair of dull thumps rang out, and the two ice dragons let loose anguished howls before completely shattering, reverting back into a pair of short blue spears that Hanli grabbed out of midair with ease. Tuhar's face paled slightly upon seeing this, following which an incredulous look appeared in his eyes. The attacks unleashed by the treasures wielded by the other body integration stage cold crystal beings also quickly fell upon Hanli, but they were repelled with ease by the semi-transparent true extreme membrane that appeared over his body, and the attacks weren't able to leave even the slightest mark on his body. Impossible! The body integration stage cold crystal beings exclaimed in unison, and they immediately realized that they had made a terrible mistake. Before they had a chance to do anything, Hanli swept a hand through the air, and a pair of short blue spears were instantly sent flying, piercing through the chests of the mustached cold crystal being, and another one of his body integration stage companions. In the instant that they were struck by the blue spears, dazzling white light instantly emerged on the surface of their skin, but the light barriers were unable to impede the blue spears in the slightest. In the next instant, both of their bodies were completely pulverized by the unfathomable power imbued within the spears, and their nascent souls didn't even have a chance to escape before they were destroyed. Immediately thereafter, a series of blurry fist projections abruptly appeared in the air in front of the remaining body integration stage cold crystal beings before striking them like lightning. They were completely unable to react to attack, but layers of white light also instantly appeared over their bodies, forming a protective barrier in an attempt to ward off the fist projections. However, the light barriers were shattered with ease, and the fist projections instantly reduced the cold crystal beings to mincemeat amid a string of dull thumps. It had taken Hanli less than a second to lay waste to the group of body integration stage cold crystal beings. But by this point, Tuhar had already recovered from his astonishment. He immediately turned and sped away as a streak of white light, fleeing into the distance at an incredible speed. At the same time, a bracelet on his wrist flashed several times in succession, releasing several light barriers of different colors that enveloped his entire body, while a suit of blue crystalline armor also emerged to encase him from head to toe. Right at this moment, Hanli gave a cold harumph, and even though Tuhar had already flown to several thousand feet away at this point, he was immediately struck by a burst of sharp pain in his head. As a result, he was stopped cold in his tracks and plummeted out of the sky. However, an ordinary-looking jade pendant around his neck suddenly exploded with a dull thump, transforming into a series of translucent azure threads that vanished into his head in a flash, providing a cool and refreshing burst of energy that instantly snapped him back to his senses. However, Hanli had already taken advantage of this opportunity, closed the gap between himself and Turan, and 7 specks of blue light emerged on his chest and abdomen, while the muscles on his arm bulged violently, and he threw a devastating punch at Turan. Turan was greatly alarmed by this, and he immediately raised the large blue sword in his hands to defend himself. Turan's towering frame was instantly sent flying back like a rag doll. And not only was the blue sword in his hands shattered, the light barriers around him were also destroyed, while the suit of crystalline armor that he was wearing became riddled with cracks. A hint of surprise appeared on Hanli's face upon seeing this, but he then instantly appeared in front of Tuhar in a wraith-like manner, before unleashing another devastating blow, releasing a burst of terrifying force that caused the space before him to ripple violently. The suit of armor and the layer of white light that Tuhar's body was encased in were instantly shattered, and he didn't even get a chance to cry out before his body and his nascent soul were completely pulverized. A shimmering blue bracelet shot back before landing in Hanli's grasp in a flash. He released his spiritual sense to briefly inspect the contents of the bracelet, then tossed it into his own storage bracelet before casting his gaze downward, only to find that the entire plaza had fallen completely silent. Everyone from both sides was rooted to the spot with dumbstruck expressions, and the battle had completely ceased. Luo Feng was the first one to return to his senses, and an ecstatic look appeared on his face as he yelled in elation, "Long live our ancestral god! Kick these pieces of foreign scum off our island! Long live our ancestral god!" Everyone else in the human camp also quickly returned to their senses, and their collective joyful voices erupted into the heavens as they charged toward the cold crystal beings with unprecedentedly lofty morale. The cold crystal beings still outnumbered the humans on the battlefield, but with the most powerful beings among their ranks slain in the blink of an eye, their morale was completely crushed, and they were quickly overwhelmed by the human army. Hanli naturally didn't have much interest in pursuing the remaining cold crystal beings, and he descended onto the plaza before stowing away the storage bracelets of the 4-bar body integration stage cold crystal beings. At this moment, everyone on the plaza was staring at Hanli with awestruck expressions, and someone suddenly yelled, "We pay our respects to our esteemed ancestral god." Everyone immediately fell to their knees before echoing this reverent cry, and Luo Feng also kowtowed to the ground in an extremely reverent and respectful manner. All of the humans on Darkvale Island were ecstatic to have survived what had seemed like a certain demise, and many of them were even sobbing uncontrollably. However, the elation in their eyes was outweighed by a sense of admiration and veneration, and they were looking at Hanli like mortals seeing a deity in the flesh. Hanli swept his gaze over everyone's faces with a calm expression. He didn't immediately declare to everyone that he wasn't the ancestral god that he spoke of, nor did he falsely accept his title. Instead, he communicated something directly to Luo Feng through voice transmission. Luo Feng shuddered slightly upon hearing what Hanli had to say, then rose to his feet before issuing a few instructions to those around him with a solemn expression. "Elder Hu, I'll get you to take care of treating the injured and tallying our losses. Elder Qi, you'll be responsible for setting up alert measures in case those cold crystal beings suddenly make a return. I have to accompany our ancestral god to the ancestral god pavilion. No one is allowed to approach the premises without my explicit instructions." Everyone immediately accepted the orders assigned to them.